So I think I got this whole gimbal thing working, but this is going to be an experiment. As you guys know, I've been talking about, just restarting this channel and just trying to bridge this gap between personal finance and Bitcoin, or pet sitting, farm sitting. This isn't my property, though. I wouldn't mind it being my property because it's an amazing place and kind of a bit of a refuge for us. But today I wanted to talk a little bit about the advantages of coupling your personal financial acumen with starting to try to understand Bitcoin. I know there are a lot of people in my audience that have followed me for a long time. This channel has been in existence since 2018. I started it after, probably about a year and a half after I went through Dave Ramsey's financial coach master training. And I decided that I wanted to do more of an online presence. I was getting really frustrated with, trying to work with people locally in more of a kneecap to kneecap kind of fashion. And so I just decided, I'm gonna go out on my own and I'm gonna start an internet thing. And that's how Zero Debt Coach started, which I've kind of shut that down. I pivoted into doing more business content for a while. Just decided to go back to my roots. I've been in Bitcoin for over 10 years and it's been a long and wild ride, as you can imagine. Bitcoin volatility is the stuff of legends, but I think if you have a long enough time horizon, which is what Bitcoin teaches you to have, a lot of that just melts away. You start to not care about it so much. It doesn't. It becomes less and less of a thing for you. But the issue that most of my clients have had over the years is really just kind of getting really, really boring stuff. And honestly, that's the stuff that's the hardest to teach, that's the hardest to encourage, it's the hardest to coach people through. Just in the course of, coaching people one-to-one, coaching families, it's just been this weird ride of, okay, well, how do I start talking about Bitcoin? How do I start working it into the conversation? How do I start helping people, come to some sort of basic fundamental understanding of, of what it is and how to use it? And as I talk about in pretty much every video nowadays, there's a really cool thing that's starting to happen, seeing it on YouTube, where a lot of Bitcoiners are starting to kind of break away from the Bitcoin only crowd and talk about, Bitcoin in terms of personal finance. Like, all right, I'm curious, so you may be sitting in this position and you're like, okay, yeah, man, I'm really curious about Bitcoin. How do I start incorporating it into my daily personal finance? Now, it's actually not as hard as you might think. There are lots of tools. You can, there's the Lightning network, so you can actually make Lightning payments. Like, vendors like Steak and Shake are starting to accept Bitcoin Lightning payments. There are ways that, if you've bought Bitcoin and you want to, you can buy gift cards, you can, to transfer that back into fiat. But I think what I wanted to talk about today is just kind of getting back to the basics. So I have this Opto guide that I talk about a lot. If you're somebody that's struggling and with, just the state of the economy right now, which, who isn't? And you still haven't gotten, the basics down. Like, you're like, my finances are a mess. I'm not on a budget. I'm not tracking expenses. I have debt. There's an Opto guide. And Opto is just an acronym that I put together. It stands for organize, plan, which is budgeting, track, and then optimization. So let's say, for example, you're working through Dave Ramsey's baby steps, right? And you're like, okay, doing pretty well, but I want to do better. And but the thing that I'm really hung up on is the budgeting piece. This program that I put together really dovetails well with Dave Ramsey's platform, this program, the 7 baby steps, because what I found over the years is, as I was coaching a lot of my clients through the process of getting their money right, the budgeting piece was the thing that was hanging them up. So I would have clients that would come to me and they had been through Financial Peace University 2, 3, 4, a couple of couples had been through it 5 times, and it just never really stuck. So the pattern that I recognized was that this organization, planning, and tracking. So sitting down, making a list of all your bills, your expenses and debts, as well as your income sources, obviously. Plugging those into a zero-based budget, and then beginning the process of tracking your expenses. That's the basic blocking and tackling of personal finance. So no matter where you are on the spectrum, that's table stakes, and that's something that you really have to do. And what you'll find in personal finance, in investing, in saving in Bitcoin, you can do the basics over and over and over again and just stick to those, the amount of success that you'll have in a relatively short period of time, again, coaching probably hundreds of people through the process at this point over the course of the past, I think, 17 years I've been a financial coach. The first 3 months are the hardest. The first month is what I like to call a controlled demolition. You made a list of all your bills, expenses, and debts, plugged them into a budget, and then, a month and a half in, you're like, oh man, I forgot about this expense, or I forgot about that expense. Some of the biggest ones that people forget about are all the subscriptions that they have. Nobody really knows what they spend on food, whether it's restaurants or the grocery store. So all of those things take time. So I offer that to you guys as a way to help you get on track. And then the last O in Opto is for optimization. So whether you're starting to save a baby emergency fund, or you're starting the debt elimination process, and you're like trying to choose between the debt snowball and the debt avalanche method, got some guidance on how to do that. And then once you've eliminated all of your debt and you've gotten through that piece of it, it's really just a matter of saving your big boy emergency fund and then getting into investing, which Bitcoin is amazing for that. And again, doing it in a responsible way, in a way that's not in a way that's going to not cause you to have to sell your Bitcoin, not cause you to run out of fiat currency, because the truth of the matter is we still live in a largely fiat world. It's very difficult to live on a completely fiat standard, or I'm sorry, Bitcoin standard. It's not impossible, but it is exceedingly difficult. So I want to acknowledge that. One of the things that, if you're listening to a lot of Bitcoin content, which I think you should, is it's an ongoing process of learning how the protocol works, all the different facets of it, from the technology to the payment layer to how transactions and mining and all of that stuff works. It takes time. So I definitely recommend that you continue to do that. But I wanted to offer that to you as a resource as you are getting into putting some of your savings in Bitcoin. I've mentioned this in a bunch of other videos in the past, but a couple of videos ago I mentioned the Fold card and the Gemini MasterCard. There's a little process that my wife and I are using right now to stack as much free Bitcoin as we possibly can. And you can literally stack at least hundreds of dollars worth of Bitcoin just in your first few months of using those. And the great thing is that you're using them for things that you're already spending money on. So I hope those things help. More to come. Talk to you soon.